So this is my father's 1969 280 SL. He purchased the car, he's the second owner. He actually purchased the car while my mother was in the hospital just after she gave birth to me. And he drove this car every day for 10 years back and forth into the Bronx. Right now the car has over 100,000 miles, but it has been sitting since 1982. He had originally purchased a 62 Impala convertible. He had always wanted a convertible. Purchased the car, took it to his office near the Bronx, was stolen in a day. Eventually purchased another car, wasn't very happy with. Bought this car in January of 1972 and drove it every single day back and forth to the Bronx for 10 years. It has been sitting like this since probably mid-1982, so it's been 37 years.
The first step was to clear out the old bushes and weeds so we'd have clean access to pull the car out when the garage was eventually emptied. Based on a very quick inspection, I noticed there was a ton of mouse droppings everywhere, so I wanted to wear full safety gear, which I think is appropriate after the years of dust and whatever else I'm sure to find as we emptied the garage out, which was built in 1942. As we were clearing up the space, I felt like I was going back into a time capsule from the 1960s. There was bottles of rubbing alcohol on the shelf from 67, alkyd-based paint, commonly referred to as oil-based enamel paint from the 70s, a bottle of diazinon used as a pesticide until it was canceled from residential use in 2004, and a Ronson butane aerosol can torch sitting next to a gallon of torch fuel, so it was a miracle that the Mercedes is still in one piece. Now, since the tires dry rotted years ago, we jacked up the rear and placed wheel dollies, also known as wheel skates, under each tire. Now, in hindsight, I should have brought my hydraulic go jacks. These are perfect for tight spaces, flat tires, or really low cars like on the F1 detail. The front was even tighter and we couldn't get the jack there because of all the extra stuff in the garage, and the car was parked too close to the front wall, so the jack wouldn't fit there either. So we lifted each side one at a time. At first glance, though, while looking for the lift points, the undercarriage is in decent condition, all things considering. With the flat tires off the ground and on the dollies, and after a quick sweeping to make sure that the momentum wasn't killed by a tiny little pebble, we pulled and pushed the wheels over the garage floor hump and into the sunlight for the first time in 37 years, which was pretty cool. Next, I opened the door and let in the first fresh air in a very long time, and I will say that the interior smelled absolutely awful. A mixture of mold, sort of musty-ish kind of smell, and decaying animals. It was really gross. Clearly, much of the interior will need to be replaced, but for now, the goal is to clean it up enough to surprise his father when he gets home later this evening, and to prepare the car for the Mercedes techs in the following week. As you can see, the door handle was really moldy, the steering wheel and the dash buttons were completely roached out, but to see David's expression of the memories as a kid in the back seat and him telling us stories off camera made this a very special detail for me. When we opened the hood, I was expecting a bit more corrosion, but it actually looked pretty good, although I did find the source of the horrific odor. More on this later. Opening the trunk for the first time in many years, I found the original highway flares in the box, Mercedes literature and maps, and manuals with gorgeous engine diagrams and pop-outs for repair, as well as other directions or guides in German from 1969. Now with all the treasure hunting done, it's time to remove the mold. To do this, we're using lather in the aerator, a scrub pad, and the interior brush that was cut down to 1 inch. For detailing like this, it can be helpful to have 2 different length brushes. To do this, take my normal size interior brush and simply cut it down with scissors, making it stiffer and more aggressive when appropriate. When working on moldy cars, always throw away your towels when you're done. There's no sense in washing or reusing them, so it's best to use cheap terry towels. For round 2, we used a 50-50 mixture of vinegar and water and increased its cleaning ability by using a steam machine, all without introducing a stronger ratio of acidity. While Dan was working on the moldy leather, I was vacuuming out the heavy dust, dry, flaky plastic pieces that had disintegrated years ago, spider webs, mouse poop and acorns, and of course I removed the mats and carpet where possible to make shampooing easier. From there, we scrubbed, vacuumed, steamed, and then shampooed everything to kill or at least reduce the smell. At this point in the detail, we had each blown through 3 pairs of blue gloves, so I went to the store and bought Venom Steel rip-resistant gloves before we went any further with the job. With the mats in the sun, we moved to the steering wheel. Notice the color of the steam drips off the bottom of the steering wheel. Very gross. We also used a long or normal bristle-length brush here. After cleaning up the dash a bit, Dan switched back to the short hair brush for the gearbox cover, along with lather and the steam machine with the direct spray tip. While Dan was working on the front, I focused on the rear leather and seatbelts. Now, my goal was to kill and remove the mold, but obviously I don't recommend using seatbelts in this condition and age. Clearly, all this is being replaced upon restoration, but I don't want the mechanic to get sick in the process, much the same idea as the Eagle Talon restoration. The car was stuck in the woods for many years and was getting shipped out of the country, but we needed to clean it enough so that it would not get rejected by customs, but not so much that it didn't make financial sense for the owner because it would soon be ripped apart in the restoration project as well. So it's the same kind of idea here. With the interior in better shape, we left the ozone machine in for a bit and focused on the exterior. Step 1 is kind of my favorite. Remove all the nests and hope nothing is still living in them. As you can see, we had a few tenants, but their time had passed. Next up, we used compressed air before potentially spraying water. Now, we do this because cleaning this much debris with water only makes it a soaking wet blob of leaves and grass. Once the layers upon layers of poop and dust were blown off the paint, we soaked the car in frothy hoseless lubricant to make sure all the seals were functioning properly before power washing it. This also gave the dry and brittle paint a bit of dwell time to lift as much of the baked-in grime before we hit it with water. While the paint was soaking, we installed a swivel head nozzle to the power washer to clean the subframe from the spiders and all the dust. Over the many years of pulling out cars from woods and barns, mechanics always thank us for power washing the subframe so they don't have to reach their hands into a nest and get bitten by a spider when the car is on the lift, which I would have never thought of, so I always make sure to give it a good blast. After our frothy test and knowing that the seals are tight, we thoroughly power washed the years of dirt off the paint. Next step was the wheels, trim, and engine bonnet before quickly agitating with a wet microfiber towel and soap and a degreaser, then power washed it once again. Okay, now at this point in the process, we've cleaned the inside, we've taken most of the mold off, and we removed a lot of the mouse droppings and of course their nests and whatnot. Now a lot of you are going to be asking, hey, what about the top here? Now the owner specifically asked if we could keep that top on for a couple of reasons, but one being they're going to flatbed it and take it to a restoration shop, and it's going to be an open flatbed, so they don't want to take it off with fear that we're not going to be able to put it back on. So that kind of makes sense. So no problem, we can work around that. The second thing is I know a lot of you are going to be asking, hey, how come you didn't take the seats out? He specifically said, hey, can you do me a favor, leave the seats in. Why? Because his dad is going to come home. He doesn't know that we're doing this. And his son, David, of course, is doing that for his dad. And he wants him to sit in the car and kind of feel the way that he felt back then, etc. There's more important things sometimes than just detailing. He wants his dad to kind of remember this whole experience. So at this point, I'm using air quotes here, we've washed it. We really didn't wash it. We kind of just agitated it to get a lot of the mold and stuff off, specifically so that when we polish, I'm not using the microfiber pad to soak up a lot of the junk. I wanted to use a microfiber pad to sort of abrade the surface and lift off all the old dead skin, but not necessarily the mold and the dirt. I hope that makes sense. So it's not like a traditional wash. We were just kind of pounding away here just to loosen up anything in case when the machine comes by, it jiggles it out, and now I have a dirty pad, and now I'm scratching the paint, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So sometimes you gotta use a little judgment with respect to washing. So this was by no means the greatest wash, but in terms of this car, it was exactly what it needed. So we're gonna dry it off, take a little bit of a breath because it's super hot, and we're wearing these, you know, crazy things because it is really, I can't describe the smell. It's very, very moldy, and it doesn't like, ooh, you know, like, oh my God, it smells so bad. It just hits you in the back of the throat and makes you cough. So that's the ones I get a little bit nervous about. So we're wearing protective gear, and then we're gonna polish this thing out and then go back inside and of course hit it again. You know, we still got a lot more work to do on the inside, but it's as clean as it's ever been.
To restore the dry, oxidized paint, I first tried the Meg's microfiber cutting pad with 210 instead of 105 or 110. As you know, managing residue is going to be the main concern here, and naturally it was. After you buff the paint, if you can't remove the polish or wipe it clean, revealing the paint underneath, you as the detailer must stop and reassess what you're doing. The amount of dead paint being removed is overwhelming the pad and the liquid, or in other words, there's more dead paint than there is polish. The dead paint encapsulates the polish and it sticks to the paint, so it's time to change a variable and a technique. So instead, I used a red foam pad, 210 polish, and the mow down technique, and it worked as expected. For a step-by-step guide and specifics on how and why to perform the mow down technique, click the video link above on a new Ford GT to see graphics that help explain the technical aspects if you're interested. Now, the name of the game with old oxidized paint is to develop a feel when your pad is so full of dead paint that it's time to blow it out and start all over again. The mow-down process is similar in theory to a massive snowstorm that dropped 2 feet of snow on your driveway. You don't shovel the full 2 feet at once, you'd blow your back out. You take off thin layers at a time so you don't overwhelm the snowblower and have it bogged down. This concept is equivalent to the polish sticking, or in this case, bogging down to the paint. To avoid the common issue, take smaller, fewer, and shallower bites to avoid bogging down and sticking to the paint. For extra pop on single stage paint, we polished with a yellow Rupes pad and 210. Notice I put my suit back on here because it was getting late in the day and the mosquitoes were eating me alive. Afterwards, we quickly worked on the trim using a power drill, polishing wheel, and Flitz metal polish. I also worked a few tight spots of the trim by hand with 210 and a microfiber towel. Well guys, the car is basically done. Now the big thing is David's father is actually showing up, coming home from work from New York City, and we want to do the reveal. Now we have a few things left to do. I have to finish up a bunch of the chrome, but you can see the areas over here have really been done well. We're gonna do some chrome here, just finish that up. I gotta do the other side, play with the windows, of course vacuum, do a few more things. But more importantly, David's father is 83 years old. He hasn't seen the car, meaning it hasn't pulled out in 37 years, kind of a big deal. We've worked really hard, Dan and I, most of the day here. It's kind of the moment of truth. So I'm gonna pull the camera back there. David's father's gonna be coming from that direction. And I think all of our hard work is gonna be worth the effort once we see his face. So I'm pretty excited. So I'm gonna go hide in the corner and then wait for him to come out. David, you want to go get your dad and...
It looks like it used to look.
There you go.
Holy cow. Holy cow. It looks better.
Good.
Great. I'd like to hear that.
Wow.
After seeing the car cleaned up, he agreed with his son. It's time to fully restore the family car and pass it down to his grandchildren.
but for as long as
1982.
37 years.
I was born in 81.
I have shirts older than that.
Yeah. And as luck would have it, naturally, after all that work, it started to thunder, so we needed to pull it back inside quickly before it gets pulled back out again next week on its way to the restoration shop. Well guys, we did it, mission accomplished. David is actually taking the car in and getting it restored, so hopefully I have some footage of that in the next couple of months or years. Now again, my mission with this video and with this job, because it was a real job, is to restore the car and kind of just motivate his dad to be like, oh my gosh, I remember what this looked like. Let's go in and kind of restore it and pass it down to the family. So very cool. A quick note of thanks to David. A lot of times I don't get to film these, so every time I post a video, I usually have 5 or 6 or 7 videos that I can't post, meaning for one reason or another, the family doesn't want that on there, and I can respect that. In this case, David did, so thank you, because we got to shoot a really cool video, and it was a fun experience, and sort of be there when his dad experienced it was certainly emotional off camera and that kind of thing. So thank you for allowing us to share this. So if you guys like this kind of video, please subscribe, and make sure you check out the eagle talon video where I pulled it out of the woods. Absolutely disgusting, same kind of idea. So if you dig this video, I'm sure you'll like that one. As always guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.